The economic reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic has been absolutely mental. In many ways, what's happening with the economy is almost as scary as what's happening with the virus itself, which I know seems like a wild thing to say, but it's true. So I'm going to break this down for you. The government is currently panicking, and they're absolutely pouring cash, just dumping money into the financial system, into the stock market, into the banks. So a few days ago, when this stuff was really starting to explode, the market plunged. And when I say plunged, I mean the biggest single-day drop as a percentage since 1987, rivaling the 1929 Great Depression and that crash. It lost about 10% in one day. So what did the Fed do in response? Well, David Pakman tweeted this here, and this explains it very succinctly. Guys, this is what a $500 billion subsidy, a bailout of $500 billion got us today. Think about that. $500 billion was spent on what's in the blue circle. So let me explain that. That was an emergency $500 billion bailout to try to shore up the markets. And it bought us about an hour before the stock market plunged again. Think about that. That is insanity. $500 billion, poof, gone. Hey, this will save us. This will shore up the markets. This will calm investor fears. They pump it in there, gone in an hour, gone. Look at how willy-nilly they throw around money when it comes to their beloved stock market, when it comes to the big financial institutions. I don't know. We need to do it. Jim Cramer, the host on CNBC, who's not that smart, by the way, was talking about how we need emergency liquidity, immediately was getting calls from the White House, talking to Steve Mnuchin. Guys, just so you know, ain't nobody driving this ship. They don't know what the hell they're doing. These guys are idiots. Larry Kudlow is one of his top economic advisors. Larry Kudlow has been wrong about virtually everything his entire career. I mean, we're talking about guys who are so dumb, they said before the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis and Great Recession that we're not in a bubble. Unbelievable stupidity. Unbelievable stupidity. So, if that doesn't terrify you enough, look at this. It's from CNBC a few days ago. Trump demands more Fed action in coronavirus response, even after $1.5 trillion liquidity injection. President Trump angrily demanded that the Federal Reserve lower a key interest rate in response to the coronavirus crisis. Trump's tweet came a day after the Fed announced it would make up to a massive $1.5 trillion worth of short-term loans to support credit markets and assure liquidity. So, okay. Now, instead of a quick, $500 billion bailouts, shore up the marketplace. Now it's, okay, no. Do we say $500 billion? We're going to do a $1.5 trillion bailout. Well, guess what? The exact same thing happened. Poof, gone. So, I believe we had one day of the market not absolutely tanking. That was yesterday. And now today, immediately upon opening, guys, they had to shut it down within 1 minute of opening it. The futures dropped 1,200 points. Today, they opened it immediately, record plunge. They had to shut it down. They have this emergency system in place where when it drops too fast, too quick, they shut it down. This is now, the third, fourth time that it's happened within the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks? $1.5 trillion. Like that. Gone. Okay. I'm not done yet. You live in the twilight zone, guys. I'm trying to tell you that. We live in the twilight zone. You think, when you're a kid, you think like, oh, the older people got it figured out. They got the system working relatively smoothly. They're idiots. They don't know Dickie McGee's axe. You probably know more if you've taken 2 years of a college course on economics compared to them. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. Okay, so here we go. More. The Federal Reserve announced that they're cutting rates to zero, and they launched a massive $700 billion quantitative easing program. So quantitative easing is another fancy way of saying bailout, subsidy. Again, they announced this before the market opened today, and the market is falling off a cliff. So I don't know. You do the math on that. $500 billion plus $1.5 trillion. So that's already a total of $2 trillion. By the way, that's the cost of the Iraq war already up front. When all is said and done, it's going to be $7 trillion when you add the interest and whatnot and you extrapolate out. But right now, it's about $2 trillion. So in the course of 2 days, we wasted $2 trillion trying to stop a market plunge, and the market's plunging anyway. But it isn't even that. $2 trillion plus now the $700 billion. $2.7 trillion spent on this. And the results, bupkis. We're still plunging. We're still falling off a cliff. Now, the effects of this are going to be disastrous, guys, because the way the stock market works, it's really like a sick trick. Because when times are good, you don't necessarily experience the benefits. The elites love to privatize the profits and socialize the losses. So you have to pay for the bailouts. You are the one who's on the hook when things go south, but when things are going well, you're not necessarily a beneficiary. So it's a rigged game. But when things go bad, you do feel the brunt of it, because that's when the captains of industry, the elites, start laying people off. So listen, what we're witnessing right now, not to add too much to the panic here, but this is a hell of a lot more scarier than the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession, which many of you guys lived through, and obviously I lived through. And, there was a big decline, but it was relatively gradual. The decline we saw in the market was relatively gradual. It was over an extended period of time, and it was a relatively steady decline with a couple big drops in there, but nothing like we're seeing right now. Right now, it is falling off of a cliff. This is more analogous to the 1929 Great Depression than it is to the 2007-2008 Great Recession. Now, I guess you could say the good news is it's tied to the thing that popped the bubble was the pandemic. So it's easy to conceive of a situation in which the pandemic didn't happen, in which case we wouldn't be in this situation with the market. But, coulda, shoulda, woulda, we can make up a fantasy world, or we can live in the world that we're in. So what do you do? That's the next question. What do you do? Because this is catastrophic. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs. There's going to be a lot of pain out there, a lot of suffering out there, and we have to do something to ameliorate that. And, these people aren't even going to be able to work. People who lose their jobs aren't going to be able to look for a new job because, there's a pandemic that's killing people out there, and everything's about to go on lockdown, on quarantine. So what do we need to do? Well, first of all, other countries, I think Switzerland unveiled their package to deal with this, and the government's paying 75% of the wages of workers, and then the businesses are picking up 25%. So that's one way you could go about it. In my opinion, here's what we need to do to deal with both the pandemic and the stock market crash. First of all, we need a total ban on all non-essential gatherings. Now, France did that. Spain did that. New York City just announced that they're doing that. Ohio's doing that. I think it either needs to happen across the country, either on a state-by-state basis, or you just have the federal government say, listen, a month, everything's shut down skis. And when I say everything, I mean all non-essential travel and gatherings. So, it is what it is. We have to deal with the crisis. And this is the only way to make sure you flatten the curve and don't overburden our healthcare system. And it's already probably too late and we're going to overburden it, but we have to put the brakes on right now. Right now. So I would do a ban on all non-essential gatherings and travel. That means you could only go really to the hospital. You can go to the grocery store. You can go to the pharmacy, and that's pretty much it. That's one thing I would do. The second thing I would do is immediate moratorium on bills. So the big ones, the student loan debt payments, they said, oh, you don't have to pay interest on that. No, you shouldn't have to pay that, period. People don't have the savings to pay that if they're not working and they can't work. So, moratorium on that, moratorium on paying mortgages, all these major bills that people have to pay, we have to press pause. And listen, that gets to a bigger issue that I've been screaming about. People thought I was joking. I'm not joking. We need a built-in, from now on, you need to lay the groundwork for having the option of an emergency economic pause button, an emergency societal pause button, where we are prepared for something like this to happen in the future. Because now, cat's out of the bag now. This is gonna happen again at some point. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So we do need an emergency pause feature on society and on the economy. That sounds silly, but actually when you think about it, it really doesn't. It actually seems like a relatively straightforward idea that would have made a lot of sense to have in place for a situation like this. So on top of freezing those major payments, which by the way is not unprecedented, other countries are doing, I think Italy put a pause on their mortgages. But I would also do an emergency UBI bill. What Congress did is, and this is shameful that they did this, but they got together, they said, okay, great. See, we did a bill, emergency bill for paid sick leave. Well, you read the details of it. Guys, they exempt corporations with over 500 people, and they exempt, businesses with under a certain number of employees as well. So the paid sick leave, emergency paid sick leave, only goes to 20% of workers in the country. Guys, there's a pandemic. You can't, all these, cutesy little loopholes that you're doing to try to protect your donors, you can't do that. The pandemic is not going to discriminate. They're not going to abide by your freaking loopholes and go, oh, I will only affect the people, the corporations that have less than 500 people. What are you doing? You're putting at risk 80% of the workers in this country? Do you not grasp what is happening right now? It's a pandemic. So, instead of a mealy-mouthed, stupid little Weasley, and by the way, the Democrats were bragging about this. Oh, see what we got? So the only concessions you got from Republicans were 20% of workers get paid sick leave. No, in that situation, what you do, Nancy Pelosi, if you cared and if you knew how to play politics and if you actually believed in this position, which she doesn't because really she's Republican light, but what I would do is pass the bill that has paid sick leave for everybody in the country and then make them vote against it. And then when they vote against it, are you kidding me? Holy hell will rain down on the Republican Party. They'll say, we have a pandemic, and the Republicans just voted against paid sick leave. Are you insane? No political party could withstand the insane amount of pressure that they would get in that situation. But Nancy Pelosi doesn't care. She'd rather protect the Republicans because she kind of agrees with the Republicans. She doesn't want to see the entire economy come to a halt, even though it would save lives if we do that. She's like, yeah, sure, 20% is fine. 20% of workers get paid sick leave. No, what I would do is, it's not even paid sick leave. You do an emergency UBI bill. An emergency UBI bill. Because if we're doing a total ban on all non-essential travel and gatherings, well, first of all, the time frame should be at least a month. But, okay, do an emergency UBI bill that lasts for the same time frame. And the other thing, of course, this is a no-brainer, and other countries are laughing at us for not having this in place already. Not only should the test be free, the treatment should be free. Obviously, you can't have a system where, somebody is feeling sick and they feel like, well, I don't have paid sick leave, I got to go to work. And also, if I get more sick, I can't go get treatment because I can't afford it. This is prime territory for a disaster because this person is going to infect so many more people because they feel like they have no option but to suck it up and go to work. Everybody is in danger because of how terrible our system is. Do you understand that? The lack of paid sick leave and the lack of universal health care makes everybody in this society, doesn't matter how rich you are, you're in more danger as a result of it. So that's the other thing I would do is an emergency UBI bill. Make sure treatment is covered. And also a moratorium on evictions. And I believe Governor Cuomo announced that in New York. There may be others who announced that. I know Gavin Newsom is doing a similar thing to what New York is doing. We're kind of banning all non-essential gatherings. Trump is considering a national curfew at the moment. Listen, what we need to do, if we actually are serious about tackling this, it is effectively, and this is the final piece of my proposal, a pause on the stock market for a month as well. It is effectively pressing pause on the economy and society and the world. Press pause on it, quarantine and lock down everything, and make sure people will be okay and will get through with the emergency UBI. So you get rid of all the major bills for a month, give the emergency UBI, and basically, people will get to stay in and watch YouTube and watch Netflix and play video games, and that's how we spend the month, and we save lives in the process. So, listen, that's the way I would handle it. I think one of the biggest problems is because corporations basically own our government. They've bought our government. They do not want to see everything come to a halt, everything get locked down, because that means no profit for them. So they want to kind of stay in business and drag on and do their best to keep clawing profits. But, that is so dangerous at this point in time. And I would actually argue to the owners of these corporations, you will net make a hell of a lot more money if we just press pause on everything right now. Press pause on everything for at least a month. Okay, do the emergency UBI. Do the moratorium on all those bill payments. Do the ban on all non-essential gatherings and travel. This is our only chance to fight back against the pandemic since we don't have a cure, we don't have treatment, we don't have a vaccine. This is our only chance to fight back, and also I think it's the only chance to avoid an even further economic meltdown. If we're just going to, how can we semi-pause society, which is what we're doing right now? People are panic buying and a lot of people are staying in, and we're semi-pausing society, but the market's going to be open and continue as if, it's like a normal time. Of course you're going to see, the market tank. Society is going through a crisis right now. Obviously it's going to tank. So you should press pause on that as well. So all these half measures are making the situation way worse from an economic perspective and from the pandemic perspective as well. You need bold, decisive action, you need strong leadership, and you need policies that we know will get people through this crisis. And I think eventually they will be forced to accept a similar situation to what I'm describing right here. They certainly won't do everything I want them to do, and they certainly wouldn't do it right now, which is when I want them to do it. But they should. They should. They will be dragged to a position where they start these things too late, or some of these things too late, and people will continue to suffer. Many people are going to die. Many people are going to get infected. And this is like a nightmare scenario. I don't even know. The fact that a lot of states are allowing the Democratic primary to proceed tomorrow is insanity. Shame on every election official who said, yeah, we're going to still have our vote tomorrow. Then you're going to get more people infected. That's the way it works. And I hope you get sued when they do get infected. You can't say the CDC already recommended no gatherings of 50 people or more. And then you're going to have an election? No, that's not okay. So it's a mess, guys. And I'll keep you updated. And just prepare for the worst because we're currently witnessing it.